Hello, and thanks for coming to Fame's financial check-in. Today's topic, oh no, my budget is leaking. So today we're going to look at whatever situation you're in, paying down debt, fighting inflation, or just trying to make ends meet. We want to get the most out of our budget. But money does have a way of leaking out. And in this session, we will look at some of the most likely areas where you can button up and redirect your financial resources. I have already put some links in the chat that I'll refer to today, so you'll be able to find those there. All right, continuing on. So to set the stage, everyone's in a different place, and definitely no judgment on here on wherever you may be. I just fixed a leak in my budget last week, and I'm a really good budgeter, and found some place where I was spending more than I want to spend. Kind of got away from me. So really, we really have to look at your wants and needs, your decisions, and your consequences. Um, we are not gonna, in this session, tackle the big ones: housing, cars, student loans. Those could demand an hour or many hours just for themselves. However, you can contact me, and if you would like some more information on any of those particular items, I can have a chat with you and send you in the right direction. Another thing about today is to really think about opportunity cost. Everything I'm going to talk about today really comes down to choosing one thing over another. The power of these small choices as they apply to our budgets, and the opportunity cost of our decisions. A big part of that is when we think about the small choices we make, and I want to throw in there the idea of compound interest and how that plays into opportunity cost, meaning if we are able to save some money in one area, we could be redirecting that. One of the ways we can redirect it is saving or investing and thinking about time and compound interest. And so I put this on here, what's $20 worth anyway? If I can find a way to save $20, well, we could pay another bill, but we can also think about redirecting that $20 into a savings or an investment. And if you look at the chart here, $20 a month over 20 years is a lot of money. It's not only the $19,000 that you actually put your hands on, it's the growth of that money in terms of the compound interest. So this chart shows the power of that, the red line showing what the money could grow into. So it's not only what we're spending on a particular thing, it's what we could be doing with that money. That's a key concept. Setting the stage a little more, what tools do we need for our work today? Well, maybe a magnifying glass to get close into our budget, financial scalpel, a critical eye, and an open mind. I certainly can't say how to spend your money. Nobody can. But at Fame and today, we are trying to help you build these skills so that you can tackle your budget. Another thing to keep in mind, a lot of the numbers I'll throw out today are based on averages. So depending on where you live and what you do, you might find your numbers for the things you pay are different where you live, but have to start somewhere. So we are talking about averages. And inflation is it's coming back again. I don't care what the statistics say. I can see what's happening in the grocery store. And for me, that means either paying more overall or cutting from some other area or cutting within my grocery budget. Very, very tricky to manage with inflation, but even more reason to pay close attention to our budget as a whole, and every single place we can try to carve something out and redirect it. So in no particular order, I've got 8 or 9 areas of the budget where I typically find the most opportunity to make changes or cuts, small cuts here and there. Now, these might not all apply to you, but hopefully a few of them will, and those few can make a big difference. So internet, cable, streaming type expenses, the big deal here is that they're little chunks that come at us, $6.99 a month, $5.99, $4.99, $8.99. They make it very easy to sign up. And then it's very easy to forget we're paying those amounts because we think, well, it's not a lot. But what are we getting out of that? And what could the money be going to? So if you do think you have several streaming services and you're not sure, definitely audit those credit card and bank statements to see what you're paying for and analyze each service and ask yourself, is it worth it? In many cases, if you contact the providers to try to cancel, they might make you a better deal because they definitely find it easier to keep customers than to find new customers. So in some cases, I've had this experience where I was going to cancel a service and the offer they countered with was worth it to keep it for, let's say, another year at a much lower rate. If cable with regard to cable, if you're finding that you have cable TV and internet and smart TV, maybe it's time to say goodbye to one of those since there's a lot of overlap between what you'll find on cable stations versus all of the free internet-based TV stations, or a TV antenna. I spent $40 on a TV antenna, and I in Portland, so of course you need to be in a population area, but I get about 30 channels from the antenna. And many of those are on cable TV, which I found interesting that people are paying for. Internet providers are always changing. A year and a half ago, what was available to me here has changed. There are more available now. So perhaps in your area, it's worth seeing what's available and what the rates are and services are. And in the end, what's the opportunity cost? What's the benefit? What am I getting for what am I paying? And then making that choice. So as we go along here, imagine that we have our little bucket and our budget bucket is emptied out and we're trying to put some back in. So I'm going to say, based on my research and experience and averages, that $12 a month could be found from this topic and put back in our bucket. Next, gym memberships. Pardon the pun, but is it worth its weight? Gym memberships can be pretty inexpensive. There's a few that I've seen, but many of them are quite expensive. And you have to figure out, is it worth it? You can always ask them for a better plan. Again, they'd rather keep a customer than find a new one. I submit too that driving time is an expense. So one option that I turned to many years ago was spending some money on a few pieces of equipment at home and using free videos. I actually have better workouts, and I love the fact that I'm not spending time going to the gym, driving back from the gym, or getting dressed at the gym, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is time I can spend actually exercising or doing something else and save money at the same time instead of paying for a gym. But of course, what is it worth to you? For some folks, understandably, a gym membership is incredibly valuable, but it is definitely something on our list to consider today. So given the cost of gym memberships, perhaps a different plan, or perhaps switching to home workouts, could $15 a month be found in this category? Definitely. And our bucket tries to fill back up. Next area to look at is insurance premiums. I'm saving $128 a year by paying my insurance in full. My home and my auto. My auto is 6 months, the home is a year. I pay it in full, $128 in savings. That's over $10 a month. That's significant. And yes, in order to do that, you have to have an emergency fund or what we call a revolving savings, where your savings is sufficient to pay these larger bills rather than breaking them down into monthly payments. However, it's something to look at and something to work toward to pay these insurances once a year or twice a year. Significant savings, $128 a year, that $10 a month is better used somewhere else in my budget, for example, groceries, or redirected into savings or investing, saving for education, and so on. The same idea can be applied to other types of services. Some of the streaming services have a better rate if you purchase it for the entire year rather than per month. And that could add up instead of paying, $112 a year. If you add up the monthly payments, maybe they offer a $99 a year option. So if you're going to keep a particular streaming service, see if they have a yearly plan, which could save you a few bucks. I think looking at all of your insurances and other types of things you pay that could be possibly paid for in full, definitely a $10 a month opportunity here, maybe more, to put back in our bucket. Moving on to our next area, eating out. I love eating out too, but I rarely find it worth it. I rarely leave and say, wow, that was worth so much money. So a lot of things to do to address this. The biggest is to decide that you want to address this. The biggest part is to say, I'm gonna eat at home before I go out for a coffee or a drink with friends. I'm gonna eat out less, put more of that into my grocery budget, or just not spend as much when I go. When you look at averages, Mainers are spending hundreds of dollars a month in this area on average. So just trimming this budget by 10% could be big savings. Cutting it by 25% or more, really big savings. Eating out is wonderful, but again, a really big budget eater. So let's say with a few changes in lifestyle, we could find $50 a month from this topic, take half and put it toward boosting our grocery budget to offset some of the inflation we're seeing there, and half toward savings. We'll take a look at our bucket in a little while. Phones and phone services. I don't know that there's a better example of opportunity cost nowadays than looking at the price of different phone options. $1,100 average cost for a phone that has a letter in front of it versus an Android phone, the average costs are $300 for those phones. There are certainly some of us who might need the features of an $1,100 phone. I think in most cases, most people probably don't need those features, and it's a huge area to save some money. The phone companies, of course, try to hide it and make it not seem so much by offering the free phone. They're not giving away the phones for free. You're paying for it somehow. Monthly service, long-term commitments, higher data charges. They are not giving away $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 phones. So ignore those and look at the total price of having phones and service. The total price per year. That may be broken down into monthly plans, but look at what you're spending per year for what you're getting and see if you like the results and the choice and the opportunity cost. The monthly plans There are incredible differences between companies out there, incredible differences. I have seen people go from paying $90 a month for a really basic plan and found another company that was offering the same amount of data for 30 something dollars a month. So big, huge differences in the marketplace. Pays to shop around. So shop your phone and shop your plan, your data, and so on. And another area to perhaps quickly save money here is cell phone insurance. The bottom line is, objectively, it is not a good deal for consumers. For example, 88% of iPhone insurance plans are never used. And they're not cheap. And if you look at cell phone insurance in general, it can be several dollars a month plus a deductible. So that could be $100 a year or more, plus the deductible to insure something that costs $300, $400, $500. That's a really bad deal in terms of insurance. When we think about car insurance, we might pay $1,000 a year to insure a $30,000 car. Home insurance, we might pay $1,000 a year to insure a $400,000, $500,000 home. So cell phone insurance objectively is not a good deal for consumers. And if it is something that they slip in there very easily, and I believe it's a really good opportunity to save some money on a monthly basis, eliminate the insurance, put that money in your bank account, and self-insure. Yes, things could happen to your phone and you might have to buy another one. But statistically speaking, most of us are better off not having the insurance and tucking that money away and paying for phones ourselves. But again, the higher cost of phone, the more risk. So then you have to come back to where I started and say, do I really need an $1,100, $1,200 phone? Or can I get by with a $200 phone? And go from there. So a great area in the budget to trim some money, and that is today's theme. I'm going to say $20 a month could be found here when you look at the total impact of the price of the phone and monthly plans and insurance between all of those things. And we'll come back again later and see how our bucket is doing. Next, income tax withholding. It's good to check this every year, every time there's a job change, income change, family change, because perhaps too much money is coming out of your paychecks and you're lending that money to the government. Yes, you get it back in April, you get a tax return. But would you rather have that money all year or lend it to the government for no interest? It is better to get that money in your paycheck every week, every month, however you're paid. So review your income tax withholding. Ask your human resource department at your job for help. You can, if you're struggling with some of the forms, not sure what to do, I can send me an email and I can either help or get you some in the right direction. I just had this happen last year. I was having too little held from my pay and I had to pay more in taxes than I wanted to in April. But in the average case, Americans have too much taken from their pay. The average tax return is more than $2,000. That's $166 a month. So if you could trim even part of that, put that money back in your paycheck, your budget would fatten up and you can do other things with that money. Maybe $25 or more could be saved in this area and redirected. Next one, credit card interest. To back up, the best advice for credit cards is to have only one card, use it for budgeted expenses, and pay it in full every month. However, and redirect resources to pay off credit cards if you have any credit card debt so that you can eliminate a major budget leak, which is credit card interest. Typically $18 a month for every $1,000 that you owe, depending on the interest rate on your card. Again, I'm talking averages. The average American has many thousands, in fact, $8,000 in credit card debt, which means they're paying perhaps $50 to $100 a month just in interest. And that's a shame because that is money that could be in your bank account in other areas of your budget, paying for things that you want or need, or helping prepare for the future. So again, if you're carrying credit card debt, one thing that is recommended for sure is to try to work the other areas of your budget that we've been talking about, redirect that money and pay off the credit card debt, therefore eliminating the interest, and then you'll have all of that extra money to put towards something you want or need in your future. Even if we could only take advantage of half of that $18 a month average, that would be $9. Another topic of places where we leak money is missing out on revenue. For example, if you do have an emergency fund or some savings, is it earning what it could be earning? Check with your bank or credit union for the latest on what type of accounts they have. What are their higher interest rate options for accounts? Checking, money market, high yield savings. Find out what their options are. You might be surprised I was when I went to my bank and found out that my checking account, based on my activity and the balance I had, that was earning almost zero interest. I was able to change just what type of account it was and earn more than 1% interest, which is not going to make me rich, but I'd rather have those few dollars a month in interest coming to me than not. So check and activate your account balances. And if you have significant emergency funds sitting in savings, perhaps putting those into certificates of deposit or high yield savings accounts could earn you 2, maybe 3%, maybe even more, depending on the institution, which if you, for example, had a $5,000 balance, that could be earning you $150 a year or more. Another idea, the ever popular and timeless, sell some stuff. Yard sales, sell them through Facebook Marketplace or other places, find some unwanted items. Every few bucks here and there, redirect it to somewhere you want or need. And there's a lot going on these days with the free groups on social media. And in these free groups, there can be tremendous opportunities to pick up some things that you really use. We do get some things now and then that we use, whether it's a piece of furniture that we were going to have to go buy, but instead someone was giving away something for free. And then we return the favor sometimes when we have something we don't need. So definitely think about free groups in your area. You'll find those especially through Facebook, perhaps other social media platforms, but lost revenue and free stuff, every little bit. So let's say we could find $6 a month in increased interest earned by maybe changing what type of bank accounts we have. Check with your financial institution. Groceries. Well, this is very difficult, especially as every time I go to the store lately, I see prices going up again, almost in front of my eyes. Just last week, this went from $2.99 to $3.49. I'm pretty good at math, pretty good at finance and economics. Those price increases are not what we're hearing, that inflation is 2 or 3% a year. They're much higher in some places. And it's difficult. It's like playing whack-a-mole to try to say, well, I'm going to spend much more on this. Where can I save that money? So it is admittedly incredibly difficult, but there are some timeless strategies. Unit price shopping. Think about the price per pound of the food you're eating, not just for the obvious things like how much is this meat per pound, but everything that you're buying. Look at the overall price per pound or unit of your meals, and see, well, am I saving some money in this area by buying this particular product, but then spending too much in another? So looking at unit price shopping is always critical when you're in the store. Compare the store brands, for example, to the name brands, always less money. And in some stores, you can earn credit or points with that store when you buy their store brands. So unit price shopping and store brands, meal planning, always looking at several days instead of just one meal at a time, thinking about how to use leftovers and repurpose into a different meal. I mean, this is probably obvious, but it's one of my favorite things to do. If I do cook meat, chicken or pork or whatever that meat may be, I always buy a little extra and cook that all at once, whether it's on the grill or inside. And then that sets me up for the next meal, which could be pasta. So the meat goes in the sauce, or burritos perhaps, mixed in with rice. A lower cost meal with lower price per pound, doing things like pasta and rice. And then throwing in some vegetables on top of it. So all of those things combined can really help offset some of the inflation that excuse me. And finally, a note about unit price shopping. I am in favor of unit price shopping, definitely unit price shop. But at the same time, watch out for big box store overbuying. Yes, something might be a little cheaper by the pound to buy a cart full of whatever product, but are you really going to use it or do you need it? If you are going to the big box stores and find yourself buying things just because they appear to be less, but you're overbuying, you're not really saving yourself anything. In fact, you're overspending in areas that are not efficient. So be careful with big box stores to really focus on the items you will definitely use and make sure the price is in fact better than regular retail stores. The name brands in the big box stores, there are really no bargains there compared to buying the store brand of one box of cereal versus 3 boxes or 4 boxes of the name brand in the big box stores. I don't see an economic benefit there consistently, but we are conditioned and marketed to think we save money when we go to the big box store. In fact, we're walking out of there usually with more stuff than we need. Big consideration. Very tough to say that we're actually going to save here. It's more likely nowadays with inflation, we're redirecting money from other places to go to our groceries. But maybe, all things considered, we can maybe find a way to trim $15 a month out of our grocery budget with some of these habits and others. I will mention this, I'm not going to go into detail on housing and transportation, but it is the biggest chunk of our budget. So reach out to me if you need some more specific resources on dealing with your housing or transportation costs. So let's check back into our bucket and see how it's filled up. These are some of the items we talked about today: streaming services, paying in full on insurance and other things, our phone costs, credit card interest, groceries, gym memberships, eating out, checking our tax withholdings, and perhaps activating our savings so that it earns more interest. All of this would add up to $130 a month. Maybe you can only carve out half of that or a third of that. That's still significant savings that can be used to something else or invested, as I showed earlier. So that money going back in the bucket, definitely puts money back in our pocket in the areas for things we want. And that opportunity cost. What could we be doing with the money? Automated savings. So we automate a lot of our expenses. We automate the streaming service at $6.99 a month. We automate this, we automate that. Automate some savings. Say, automate some investing. I'm going to automatically have coming out of my bank account the $15 a month that I'm going to save from this. I'm not only going to save that money, I'm going to start automatically investing it or saving it into something else. Try to forget about it and watch it grow. You could be paying off debt, and that has tremendous impact on our overall financial wellness, because if we pay off debt we're paying less in interest. And then when that debt is gone, we don't pay the debt and we don't have the interest, and all of that money can be redirected to these other things. We could be saving for education, home, saving for the next car, so that when that time comes, we don't have to borrow for that next car or borrow much less. Redirect something we really want. So yeah, I like that streaming service, but for $120, $130 a year, I would rather buy more books. I would rather do whatever it is. Drum lessons in my house for my teen. That's where some money is redirected to. Redirect money into your emergency fund and building your emergency fund. So depending on where you are, you definitely want to get at least a base. We have another webinar in our YouTube channel about building emergency funds, and you can always reach out to me for more resources on emergency funds. Or redirect money into giving. At the end, these are all choices that we make and the opportunities that go with them. Push yourself. You're the only one who can. No one else can really tell you how to do these things. In the end, it is going to be up to you. But the value of these decisions is huge. And I hope that some of the things we highlighted today are at least a reminder or an affirmation, maybe even some new ideas. And again, keep in mind the power of small choices over time. This graph shows what if we were to carve $130 out of our budget leaks and we put that away for 20 years, earning 6%. What kind of return could we be looking at? Well, that's a $31,000 clump of money over 20 years, but it could turn into double that because of power of compounding and time. So again, I encourage you, the details today, look at your details, but the bigger picture is to think about all of these small amounts and how all of these decisions truly add up as time goes by and how they can benefit us in terms of saving, investing, and our future wants and needs. Finally, a word from one of my favorites, Dave Ramsey. Your budget is you telling you how to manage your money. So trimming up that budget, looking for these leaks, making those decisions, you're the one who will benefit. You're the one who has to tell you how to do it. And I encourage you and wish you good luck along the way. All of these links are in the chat. Pay close attention to my email address there, as if any of these links are what you need or you need something different, email me and I will help you get in the right direction. Thank you for attending FAME's Financial Check-In, and check out our upcoming financial check-ins. We have so many great topics throughout the year. Thank you again, and bye-bye.